What's up, everybody? It's Mr. Falcongoot. Today we are taking a look at the Monroe Doctrine. So first, have this bit of information and a question for you to answer on the Ed puzzle. World War I begins much sooner than U.S. involvement. World War II begins much sooner than U.S. involvement. Why did it take so long in both cases for the U.S. to become involved? Because of Washington's farewell address. Remember, Washington had said, we need to not get involved in European wars. We need to not involve ourselves in their concerns. Make no permanent alliances, because alliances mean that you get dragged into wars that really have nothing to do with you. And for the most part, this concept of neutrality and isolationism was followed for 118 years in the United States. But after the War of 1812, we get another foreign policy development that has continued all the way until now, and that is the Monroe Doctrine. Monroe became president during the era of good feelings, which we've talked about. Remember that this is for two reasons. There is basically only one political party in the United States at the time, the Democratic Republicans, because the Federalist Party collapses, and because we have, just come out of this time period of fighting against England. There's no clear winner. We don't get anything out of the War of 1812. But we did not lose, and we did it all by ourselves, right? No one came to help us. The French don't come to help us. The Spanish don't come to help us. It's totally on our own that we, resist England, basically. And we're feeling like we're pretty awesome. Basically, they're all wearing their, Washington riding an eagle, with AK-47 shirts, right? They're very happy about it. Sparklers everywhere or whatever. But what's happening around that same time is Spain is losing its colonies. One by one, they are gaining independence. And they want to get them back. And there are other European nations considering helping Spain get its colonies back. And that's where the Monroe Doctrine will come in. It's a statement, the gist of which is right here. The American continents are no longer open for colonization by Europe. European countries can no longer come in and take over areas in the Western Hemisphere. Basically, stay out, right? We, the United States, is going to leave you alone and stay out of your affairs, and you need to stay out of not just the affairs of the United States, but the affairs of the Western Hemisphere. And so we have some depictions of this concept. This one is probably the creepiest depiction of Uncle Sam I've ever seen. Uncle Sam as a rooster, right, walking around the barnyard, right? It's difficult to see, but essentially these are the hens, and they have been cooped up in the European coop by the Monroe Doctrine. So these are European nations representing European nations. And then the little chicks running around are representing Latin American nations. One thing that this indicates, though, is we are the protector, right? The United States is the protector of Central and South America. Here's another little boy taunting England and Germany. His flag says, "Nemo me impune lacessit," no one attacks me with impunity or without being punished. And then you see the sign back here, notice trespassers will be prosecuted. Well, who's going to prosecute them? The United States is, right? The Monroe Doctrine prevents them from coming in. Notice, though, that in both and in most of these political cartoons that sort of represent this idea, the nations being protected, right, are small and weak, unable to defend for themselves, depicted there as a child, right, or as the chicks in the first one. And it's reflective of a view that Americans had, and to some degree still have, that we are a developed and strong nation, right? And that these nations need us. They're like little children, right, who need shelter and protection and whatever. And that sort of is a justification for us being the ones involved in their business. Europe can't do it, right? But we are the ones who are able to interfere and to meddle in these nations' business. So here's another one, right? So, right, imaginary line, right? Like when you're on the road trip, right? There's an imaginary line down the middle of the seat, and, you know, can't poke each other or slap each other or whatever. And that separates Europe from North and South America. This is a much later one, and here Uncle Sam is stretched across the two continents. But he's no longer looking the same direction. Right now he is looking west towards Asia, because over time this concept will extend to the world instead of just Europe. Essentially, North and South America are our domain, and everyone else has to stay out. And if it's still not making sense to you, hopefully this one will. Get off my lawn, right? In this case, the lawn is North and South America. Old man is the U.S. European nations are being chased off. And eventually, like I said, the rest of the world. The negative side to this, or at least potential negatives, yes, he is expanding on Washington's concept of isolationism, right? Like, Washington said, we must stay out of their affairs. Monroe is saying, we're going to keep doing that, but also you have to stay out of our affairs, right? But that means that the affairs then of the Western Hemisphere are the business of the United States only. So only the United States has the right to interfere, which essentially made us sort of the quote protector, but also the police of Central and South America. And then over time, this way of thinking about our relationship with the world is going to expand, especially after World War II. Because of the Cold War, which, remember, that's between the United States and Russia, essentially, where basically we are both, ramping up our arsenal of nuclear weapons and that sort of thing. We're not really fighting, but we're sort of engaged in this tense standoff. It is at this point that the United States becomes or begins to take on the role that we think of today as the police of the world, right? We're engaged all over. There was this idea that we cannot allow communism to take hold anywhere, because if it takes hold anywhere, then it will spread, right? So we have to go wherever there's a threat that communism may come in and stop that from happening. And the language there was this idea here of making the world safe for democracy, right? That sort of thing got said a lot. We're going to make the world safe for democracy. Over the years, this means we have intervened in Asia and the Pacific, the Middle East, and continuing intervention even today in Latin America. Today, as a result, U.S. military spending is greater than the next 11 countries combined. And in December, Congress passed the largest military spending bill since World War II, when we were mobilized and actually, fighting Germany and Japan, right? And this was with overwhelming support from both parties. Both parties are heavily invested in continuing our military might. And the U.S. Navy is the most powerful Navy in the world. China has more ships, but they're generally smaller. In terms of tonnage or size, we are vastly overpower any other nation, and really multiple nations combined. At the end, enjoy.